Breathing in, I'm aware that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I am aware that I am breathing out. In, out. Breathing in, my breath grows deep. Breathing out, my breath goes slow. Deep, slow. Breathing in, I'm aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I allow my whole body to relax. Aware of body, relaxing body. Breathing in, I smile. Breathing out, I feel at ease, free. Smiling, free. Breathing in, I know it is a very precious moment. Breathing out, a wonderful moment. Present moment, precious and wonderful moment. So dear respected Thai and dear community, so good morning and welcome to Lower Hamlet. In behalf of all my sisters of Lower Hamlet, we say welcome to you here. So this morning we choose to offer you a panel, the possibility to ask questions. So we are the four of us here this morning, and we will try to answer to your questions. So there is a chair here who is for you. So what we would like you, if you have a question, and we ask you to ask a question from your heart. Maybe you have a question in you since who is there. Some of you stayed here for 1 week or longer, or you're here already for many years, and you have a question who is here in yourself, and you would like to have a bit of clarity, some help to have some answer to your question. So the answer is within yourself already. So for us on the panel, what we will do would be to maybe open some window or some door, or allow you to look with a different angle at your question. So, and a question from the heart will help many people. So maybe sometime we may feel, oh, it's maybe nobody will be interested, but no, a question from the heart will help many people. So don't hesitate to come. So you ask questions concerning the practice, your difficulty, your joy, and maybe today do not ask metaphysical question or intellectual question, but really question from the heart. So, and if your heart is beating, that means you have a question and you would like to come to ask it. So. If you maybe you know someone who has a question and you want to ask for them, you can come and ask a question for your friend or the person you know, and you have the possibility to write a question and pass it forward in case you're really too shy to come forward. So you can ask the question either in Vietnamese, in English or in French, okay? And we have translation this morning. It's wonderful. It was a bit complicated to kind of coordinate, but with generosity of my sisters and everything, and my brothers who help us, everything is working now. So when you have a question, you please come and sit on the chair, and then you can ask your question. Okay. So yeah. So you can. Yeah. And so what we will do first, before you ask your question, we will listen to a sound of the bell, so we can all come back to our breathing, our breath. Yeah, it's okay. You can enjoy the breath, breathing in, breathing out. We are here together as a big family, so we at ease and relax. Thank you. I don't know if my sister want to add anything. No. So we are very lucky. Is because we have among us one of our sister, who is the abbess of our center in Hong Kong, and she is visiting here and staying in Lower Hamlet for a few months. We're very happy. She was away from Lower Hamlet, being in other center for 10 years, and so she came back here. That's Sister Nghiêm. Sorry for the pronunciation. And then we are the three sisters here from Lower Hamlet. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Anna. I'm staying at New Hamlet. Thank you. It's a bit overwhelming, but I thought I'd break the ice because my heart was beating, and I like this. I have a very mundane question. I'm in the course of separation from my husband, and in the throes of a quite tense divorce. And my question is, I see my husband now in mediation, but he really does not want any contact with me. And I can see that at the moment we're fighting on a very legal level, questions which are probably much more profound. But I cannot reach him at all. He does not look at me. And I wonder if you have advice how to reach someone who if I were to apologize for things, I have a feeling I would open another door to more aggression, but I really want to help him as well because I see his suffering.
Maybe I start, and then maybe my sisters will add on. So thank you for your question, and thank you for, as you said, breaking the ice and being the first one to ask a question. A separation is something very difficult and painful, and so. The thing is to recognize this in yourself, that it's not an easy moment in our life, and it's probably the same for your husband. It's probably difficult for him. So we try to accomplish something together, and then it's difficulty comes, condition change, and there is a separation that we have to do because we feel is the best thing to do. So I think it's the practice will be to take care of yourself and listen to yourself, to what is happening inside your own feeling, and to listen to to your husband. It's not so much to want to help him, but more to listen to what he is sharing, listen to his body's gesture, and open your heart and understand it's probably not very easy for him. And I think more understanding and will come maybe later, and maybe to contemplate and look what could have brought about this separation. Like, what is your part? What is my part in this separation? And have compassion for yourself. You did what you could do, but now you have a path of practice. You come here, and this will bring some reconciliation and healing. And then maybe in the future, maybe you will have a good relationship with your husband now, but maybe you will be friend again by doing that. And you can another practice that you can do is called metta, and you can send in a thought of loving kindness and peace and joy to him in your heart. It may you be at peace before you go to meet him. And I think when you go for the meeting, is to prepare yourself to do walking meditation, breathe, take some time. So when you arrive, you have an energy of peace that you offer to him, an energy of loving kindness that you offer to him, not so much by the words, but more by the energies that come from you. And things will develop from there. Yeah, good luck. And I don't know if my sister would like to add anything.
Good morning, dear Sangha. Before I left Hong Kong to come here, one day the phone rang, and I just happened to be there, and so I picked up the phone. So one young woman, she calls and she said, I'd like to go to the temple and stay for a few days, because right now I have a broken heart. I really need to calm myself down. Otherwise I think I'm going to get to be crazy, with all the thoughts in my head. So I told her, I said, next week we have a retreat with Thầy Pháp Ấn from Germany. So we have a very full house. We are very sorry we cannot have a bed for you. So please come back a week later after that retreat. And to my surprise, she asked back, oh, in the temple, there's so many people with broken heart, huh? I think to have a broken heart and have a chance to ask the question is really a blessing. To have so many people to listen to us is really a good source of relief. I think the answer is quite enough. I just like to add a little bit more. That you say that your question is very mundane. Actually, we should celebrate the normalcy, the regularity, and the ordinary of every day, like today. It's a normal day like any other normal days. We wake up when we were still alive. I have a long period of insomnia and I cannot sleep. So last night I slept very well. And this morning when I wake up, I realized how precious it is that I can sleep normal and I can wake up normal. And the day is so normal. Normally when everything happens normal, we don't pay much attention and notice to it until something happens. And then we suffer. So even though we have a broken heart, but coming for a day of mindfulness like this, we all generate the energy of mindfulness. It helps us to recognize the normalcy of a normal day like this. The sun is very warm on our skin, and you see all the flowers around us. It's helps us to heal. If we cannot recognize these elements, it's very difficult for us to heal ourselves. So I hope we all enjoy our day, not my day also. I hope that everybody enjoy our day fully. And listen, the bird is singing. The trees, the grass, the bamboos, they are speaking. So when our mind is calm, we can listen to all of these natural sounds, and that helps us heal. So when we can heal ourselves, then we can help to heal the other people. And you say that you really want to help your husband, but when, like you say, if you apologize, it might open many other doors of aggression. You're really afraid of that. So when you say that you really want to help, but we really have to know our limit and also our capacity. Once we start the conversation, maybe all the blames and all the judgments will come. And we may not be able to listen. And we will get angry. And we fight back. So we not be able to help at all. So this period of time is for you to heal and to practice listen to yourself. So when you're able to listen to yourself, then you can listen to him, regardless of how blaming or how judging that his words can be, but you can really listen to him. There's a couple, they almost divorced because they cannot communicate. The husband is the way he communicates is very violent and very hurtful. It's so hurtful to the wife to the point that her liver is really almost malfunction. It's a long period of time, almost 20 years. So all she can think of is to divorce. But then, very lucky, Thầy came to Hong Kong and she attended one of the retreats. And also she learned about meditation and listening, mindfulness and everything. So she go home and practice meditation every day. And practice meditation is to listen to herself. There's a lot of suffering and a lot of hurt and a lot of disappointment. But she never know how to take care of these things. And she learned to refrain herself from speaking when her husband really speak very negatively. And only speak when she can calm herself and speak only when she feels that there's space inside of her. So she practiced for 3 years. And the husband sees the change in her, that her word is gentler, kinder. And she listened more to him. Because she listened to him, that's how he see the change. He can express himself. And they practice now. They pretty much like a normal couple now, thanks to her practice. That she really practice meditation every day and listen to herself so she can listen to her husband. We have to be a bodhisattva for our spouse, our family members, because actually we are in a much better position because we know the practice. The other person, they don't know. They do not know this kind of practice. They don't know this kinds of meditation or mindfulness. So they cannot help themselves. So we are in a position that we can help them. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for inviting us today. So this is a question that I've been asking a lot of people over the last few days. I'm new to meditation and mindfulness, and one of the things I still struggle with every time I meditate is being lost in my thoughts. And so I've been asking a lot of people that I respect in this room, what's the process that they go through in their mind in order to come back to their breathing? How are they thinking about it? And so I've been given advice of thinking of my breath, thinking about the temperature of my breathing when I'm breathing, thinking of an energy that's flowing through my body. And I've tried all of these things, and some of them are working, but always for a very short amount of time. And so my question to you is, when you first started, how did you manage to come back to your presence, to come back to your core when you were lost in your thoughts? It's a very basic question, but it's been going on in my head, and I've asked it to maybe 50 people around the room. So 4 more. Would love to hear any tips you have.
So, dear respected Thầy, dear brothers and sisters, dear friends, I think this is the easiest question for me. So I'd like to answer this question in English. For myself, the first time I practiced meditation, and I also got like this situation. And I remember at that time, my mentor shared to me that whenever the thoughts coming up, just write it down. And you know, my first days, first weeks, whenever I did sitting meditation, and I follow me the notebook, and I wrote it down. And during my 30 minutes of sitting meditation, for only 1 minute, and many thoughts coming up, and I just wrote it down, you know. And I remember the first time I did it, I wrote my clothes, rice, delicious food. Where's my pen? And many meaningless thoughts coming up, and just wrote it down. And after sitting session, and I look at my notebook, and a lot of thoughts like meaningless, I wrote it down. And after 1 week, and it's amazing. And for the thoughts I wrote it down, a little bit meaning, just a little bit. And something like, yesterday anger, something like that, yesterday anger. And after 5 minutes, another thoughts coming up, like the road to meditation hall, the path to meditation hall, or what is scheduled for today, something like that in my notebook after 1 week. And I was so surprised about that, because first days is a lot of thoughts coming up, but after 1 week it's less and less. And I try to keep it for my first weeks in the temple. And after a few weeks, my mentor asked me about that practice, and I gave to her my notebook, and she laughed, because it's like something is very crazy, you know. But then she suggested me to practice about following my breathing, and I I start to practice, contemplate on my breathing, about in-breath and out-breath. Firstly, it's a little bit difficult because the thoughts still coming up. And I put my hand on my belly here, and I follow my breathing, raising up and falling down my belly. And it's work, yeah. And every session of sitting meditation, I just put my hand on my belly and close my eyes, and I follow my breathing. And the second, after that, after 1 week, my mentor asked me again about that practice, and I share about that. My mentor followed my practice, and she suggests me to pay more attention to the practice of Gatha. And the easiest Gatha she offered me at that moment about in, out, deep, slow, like sit down in such a session at the beginning of this session, and I practice it. And that is my first days in the temple. And during the session of sitting meditation, the thoughts coming up, that's normal, because in our daily life, because we think a lot, we speak a lot, we have a lot of conversation. That's why when we come to the heart, to the meditation, our mind still working. So for myself, during the day, in the normal conversation, we can suggest for ourselves that we have less conversation, like from our mouth, and then we less conversation in our mind. For the meaningless conversation. So instead of we think, we create conversation in our mind, so we can use that time to come back to ourselves, to follow our breathing. And sometimes we can see that when we breathe, we follow our breathing, so immediately we can treasure the beautiful nature, the beautiful conditions, wonderful conditions surrounding us. So immediately we smile with ourselves. It's not crazy smile, but that's happiness smile. We don't need to create much conversation in our mind. So when we come to the, not only to the heart, but in our daily life, we have free mind, and just follow our breathing and stop at the moment we do. So we just pay attention to what we do, not create much question, answers, like just running in our mind, you know. So I just share my first practices in the temple. Thank you.
So, dear Tater brothers and sisters, dear friend, I think one of the big misperceptions about the practice is that, and especially about Buddhism, is that we practice to not to think. And I don't, for me, in my years of practice, I find that very untrue. It's not about not thinking, but it's more about training ourselves to feel what's going on. Because, and it's not about, it's not a matter of no thinking, but what kind of thinking do we want to engage in? Because the problem is, most of the time our thinking is about the past or the future, and it has nothing to do with the present moment. So our practice is to train ourselves to pay attention and to feel what's going on in the present moment. Maybe you don't have to write this down now. Just Yeah, there's always a video. And this is what I mean, you see. So when we're practicing mindfulness, we train ourselves to focus on what's going on right at the moment. And one of the ways to do that is to do one thing at a time. For instance, you're listening to me right now and you just listen. And that, because we only have so much currency in attention. So if the more you listen to me without being distracted by something else, the quality of your listening is that better. And then that's how much focused you are on the present moment, and your thinking is less likely to go in the past or the future, or planning, gosh, this is great, and it it's answering so many questions I had in the past, or, oh, I can share this with my friends, and, whatever. So basically, we train ourselves to do one thing at a time. That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. So when you're listening to me, it's mindfulness of just listening. So that's a part of our practice. And it's not about shutting off the thoughts, because I think our consciousness always has an object also. When we're awake, there's always an object. Consciousness is always also consciousness of something. So when we're awake, for instance, there's always something that will grab our attention. And that attention will trigger something in us, and most likely a thought about the past or the future. So we just train ourselves to feel what's going on. And if a thought about the past comes up, it's okay, we're aware of that, and we're not pulled by it. Or if a concern about the future should come up, due to whatever is triggering or entering our attention, our span, our range of attention at that time, it's also okay. It's a thought, we just acknowledge it, but we're not pulled by it. So the more and more we train ourselves like that, we're not, our kind of thinking is more present moment centered. And we don't lose so much energy in kind of useless thinking. Because let's say I'm worried about the gas being turned off in the kitchen or not. Well, everybody is here, for instance. I don't have to spend the next hour worrying about that. I could just get up and go check, for instance. If I'm that worried and I'm acknowledging my worry and it's big enough, I'll just get up and go check. Otherwise, I'll acknowledge that the worry is there, and I say, okay, I know you're there, but right now, maybe it's not such a big worry, and I can pay attention to this Q&A, for instance. So you also learn how to kind of filter out your thoughts, and to kind of engage in the kind of thinking that's more beneficial for you in the present moment, and more nourishing for you as well. Because in Buddhism, we don't really speak about, the Buddha speaks about right thinking. He doesn't necessarily speak so much about no thinking, or encourage us to don't think at all. He speaks about right thinking. And, when the Buddha speaks about practicing no thinking, it's in order to train ourselves to kind of recognize all of the useless thinking that's going on, like the kind of thinking that my sister was sharing in the beginning. Because you'll find much of your thoughts throughout the day has nothing to do with the present moment. Yeah, so we have to kind of train ourselves again. And like I said, it's a matter of feeling as well. It's a matter of, for instance, when I find myself getting lost in whatever thought, I can use my sensory impressions, either what I'm hearing, what I'm touching, or my breathing. The breathing is the most reliable thing, because it's always available for you, and that's why in our practice and in many Zen traditions, the Buddhist traditions, we use the breathing as an anchor. We call it an anchor. Because, okay, an exercise for everybody right now. Let's say Think of something you will do this afternoon. You know, just anything random. I don't know. And then my sister can invite one sound of the bell. Keep thinking what you're thinking. It doesn't matter what your thinking is. And then you just, as soon as the bell is invited, you come back to your breathing. And see what happens to that thought. And just feel the breath going in and out. See what happens to your thinking. Yeah. Just think about anything. You're allowed to think now. And it doesn't matter, past, future, present, your, pet peeves, how irritated you are with your neighbor right now, I don't know. Think about anything. And as soon as the bell is invited, just feel your breathing. Don't think about your breathing, just feel your breathing. How the air enters your body, how your chest rises and falls. How much tension there is in your shoulders. Just feel the breathing and relax your body. Anybody fought really hard to keep the thought in your head? And see, as soon as you feel your breathing, or you focus your attention on your breathing, whatever thinking you have is also calmed. So this is a kind of training that we have to do, because our mind is very active, and we've allowed it to be kind of automated. We've allowed it to kind of have free rein, ever since we were born. If we've never been exposed to mindfulness, we've most likely allowed our minds free rein every moment, and we have not trained ourselves to stop our thinking, or to just actually, it's not about stopping the thinking, it's focusing the thinking on what's going on in the present moment. Yeah. And the breath is happening, other things are happening. So, when you have a crazy thought come up, maybe if you see a beautiful tree in front of you, you can also focus your attention on that. For most of us practitioners, we find the breathing the most easy and pleasant. That's why we share about the breathing a lot. For many people, it's also walking meditation. That's one very wonderful way of practicing to calm down your thinking, your strong emotions. You just pay attention to the feeling of walking, to the feeling that happens, the contact between your feet and the earth. And that also, quote unquote, stops the thinking. Yeah. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Hello, sisters, the Atariya Sangha. My name is Uriel, and I'm staying at Sunha with my band of brothers. My question during this week, which has a personal background, but I'll just jump straight into the question, is let's take as example, if you have a job that makes you depressed, if you are in a relationship which is abusive, or maybe something very small. If you're sitting in a very, and the position in you're sitting, it's uncomfortable. When is the time to embrace that pain, to work in your inner conditions, and when is the time just to move your leg, just to change the outer conditions? When is the time to stick to the job and change your inner disposition, and when is the time to say, you know, this job is not for me, I have to change the outer conditions? So I'm struggling a little bit with finding this fine line between the discernment of knowing I need to work in myself to make this okay, or knowing, no, I have to change the outer conditions. It's not just upon me and my inner work. I hope the question is clear. Thank you.
I am doing kinds of retreats year round for almost 20 years. I'm also thinking of maybe changing job. This question many young people ask. They work for a few years and they find that I have enough for this job, so it's time for me to move on and find another job. But as you see the monastic sangha, you see many of them are so young, but they keep doing the same thing, retreat year round. The responsibility. Of course, there's time that we feel very bored. I feel so tired. But we learn to find the joy in what we are doing. So when you have a chance to come and to learn a practice and to be with us, to live 1 week, to stay 1 week or 2 weeks, you also have this chance to learn. Like I say at the beginning, to do very mundane things every day. But we find the joy of doing it every day. So the schedule is very helpful. The regularity of the schedule. It helps to train our mind. That we will do one thing at a time. But of course, as you work out there, you have the pressure, you have stress, because you have many obligations. Your family, your professional life, your personal life, your relationship, and many, many other things. So one young yoga teacher, she said, I'm very happy to teach yoga. But look around, I see the pressure and expectation from my family. I should get a PhD. So she asked, should I get a PhD? Or change my job, doing something else, because I'm very good with yoga, so I can learn to do something else. And then I said, well, you can write down all the pro and con of doing this, the current things that you are doing right now. So if the scale is tipped on one side, you know what is your choice. So if we find that we are too bored of a kind of job we are doing, or we feel that we feel that there's no joy doing this, or no respect of doing this, because many of us, when we go to work, we are being scolded or being yelled at the job that we are doing by our supervisor, and we lose our dignity of doing this kind of job. One young man, he asked, my boss yelled at me every day, and every day is a matter of restraining myself or punching him back. So should I quit the job? So when we have these kinds of questions, we ask ourselves, and if we don't have the answer, then we need to give ourselves more time to really look into it. And the answer is always come from within. If we really give ourselves enough time, we will find the answer. We cannot give you the answer. We only can give you some guidance in the practice, and so that you can make the right choice. So, any other sister have anything?
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I have a question about my suffering. I was born during a war situation. My question is about how can I release the tensions that are like from early childhood. During looking deeply, I saw that a lot of suffering comes from this period of time. And yeah, so my question is, how can I patiently and compassionately deal with this kind of deep suffering? Thank you.
Dear friend, my sisters tell me I was born in the war, so I should answer this question. I find when I look into my suffering, and it has to do with the war and with what my parents went through, or what I went through as a child, and when I really look into it, I see that much of the suffering continues in the form of not so much memories. Because I really have very little memory of that time, but they're there in the form of habits, and one of the habits that I notice that I have, growing up in America, was because due to the war, then we had to immigrate, and my parents went to America. We took the family to America, and so we grew up there, and we adapted. We we learn the language, we learn the culture. And growing up for a while, I didn't really. It was kind of a searching for who I was. Am I Vietnamese? Am I? America is a melting pot, so does that mean I'm American too? You know? And then you go to school and then there are children who make fun of you and chant things like Chinese, Japanese. Anyhow, there's a chant, I still remember it. And so, you know, it's kind of to make fun of like Asian kids. So like you're at the edge of the border of the, you know, fitting in. So there was always this drive in me to kind of fit in. And it became a kind of a habit. And I think this was maybe a product of the war. But then later, when I thought about it too, I saw, no, it wasn't so much a product of the war. The war probably, you know, of course my family had to immigrate, I had to learn how to fit in. Those issues naturally come up. But when I looked into this habit a little bit more deeply, I also recognized it in my parents as well. And it was there in them even before the war. My father grew up with a surrogate father, and he knew who his real father was the whole entire time. It's just they could not claim each other. So I felt, when I looked into my father, I saw, oh, he was also living on this edge, as I was, you know, growing up. And that was not necessarily due to the problems of emigration or anything, but it was, he had that suffering as well. And I think that also got passed to me. And my mother had it as well. My mother also, when I thought about this, you know, feeling of not really belonging anywhere, I recognized it. I recognized this feeling in my mother as well. Because she lost her father when she was very young. And growing up with her mother, or also another stepfather, and not really feeling like she belonged to that family either. So I realized, you know, when I looked into this feeling of not belonging, I saw the many, many different roots, and not just due to the war. And so when it comes up, I can easily say, hello, mother. Hello, father. And I embrace this feeling. And in this moment, I recognize that, oh, this feeling is coming up. Not necessarily because I don't belong. Something has triggered it. This feeling has come up. It's been transmitted. It's been transmitted to me for, you know, through maybe many generations. Maybe even if I dig up my grandparents' history, they probably, something happened to, you know, kind of, they probably went through that as well. It's something very human, I think. Nowadays you call it FOMO. But yeah, it's feeling like you don't belong. So the suffering is when I look into it, I identify it very specifically. What am I suffering from? In this moment, what am I suffering from? So it's not just suffering from the war, actually. It's something very specific. And you can trace roots. Some of it will have its roots in the war, but it also goes beyond that. And then we learn how to kind of embrace our suffering. And because, you know, I want very much to transform the suffering. And especially this feeling of not belonging, I knew it was very strong in me growing up, and I never understood why. And then when I started practicing, it wasn't a question anymore. You just practice to be in the present moment with people you're speaking to, with groups you're with, etc. And so eventually this feeling, it didn't come up so much anymore, because there's a difference between what I knew there's a difference what goes on in my mind and what's actually going on. For instance, if I'm sitting in a group, nobody's saying that, oh, you don't belong here, but in my mind, it may be saying something else. So I learned how to recognize what's going on in my mind and ask myself, am I sure? Am I sure? And eventually, I asked myself that 1,000 times maybe in the beginning a day. So eventually, you check with the reality and you're like, oh, my perception about that is a bit wrong, is a bit warped. And then I adjust, and then I, get in touch with people who actually, the situation is not like that. I get in touch with a different situation. And slowly this feeling of not belonging, it transformed. And I remember one day, I think it was like my 3rd year as a nun or something, and I had this dream. I was walking somewhere with the Sangha, doing walking meditation, and I was paying attention to my feet and my footsteps, and then when I looked up, the Sangha was gone. And in my dream, I felt abandoned. I was like, gosh, maybe I don't belong in this Sangha. They left and they went somewhere they didn't even tell me. All these thoughts I could recall in my dream. And then I realized, because a feeling of hurt was coming up, so in my dream I followed my steps, my walking. And then after a while, breathing, walking, embracing that feeling of not belonging, because I knew how strong it was in me. And then I looked up and the Sangha was there. And then I woke up from the dream. But the dream was not amazing. It was the moment that I woke up that was amazing. Because when I woke up, I realized that, that feeling of not belonging, I don't think it could ever bother me again. I don't think it could ever cause me to suffer again, because I knew how to embrace it. When it comes up, I know what to do with it. I know what to do with that suffering, that particular suffering, when it comes up. I've seen some of the roots. I don't blame myself. I don't blame my parents. I don't blame anyone. I know it's a matter of embracing, and I know it's a matter of transforming. So when I woke up, that was the moment that I said, oh, this suffering, it will never, ever bother me again. It was a very strong statement to make, and to this day, it's 95% true. Because it does bother me occasionally, but only 5%. Because I could eventually bring myself to handle the feeling when it comes up. It's not that it's not going to come up again. It's not that whatever suffering that you are going through due to the war or whatever, things we have triggers and they will bring it up. So we have to learn how to handle it when they come up in this moment. And as soon as we learn how to handle it one moment, it gives us experience for handling it the next time and the next time. So it's a matter of also training. Yeah. And if ever you cannot handle it in one way, we get creative or flexible. We look at it from a different angle. Yeah, we look at it from a different route. Or sometimes too, I find sometimes I don't have to necessarily identify the roots to be able to embrace the suffering. Just coming back to my breathing and sitting with it is already enough to calm it, and it doesn't run in my mind, have a stampede and, trample out all the other good things that are going on. So just learning how to embrace it with your breathing alone or your walking is already good enough as well. Eventually, you know, maybe you can identify its roots, more roots. But don't expect to be able to identify all the roots of our suffering in order to be free of suffering. Because that insight, you know, being able to identify the roots of our suffering, it's insight. And our daily practice will help to produce that insight. And insight always grows, it's infinite. So you'll see it from this angle here and you think, oh, I understand my suffering. Maybe tomorrow you see it from a different angle and you understand your suffering a little bit more. Yeah. So I just want to share how I practice embracing my suffering. Thank you.
Dear sisters, dear community, my question comes from moments when I'm feeling pity. So when I'm feeling sorry for myself or sorry for others in a way that disconnects me from them and separates me from them. And so I'm wondering how I can transform this pity into compassion. One example might be this moment. So I'm maybe feeling sorry for myself that I'm nervous up here, and all these people aren't feeling that right now, maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
There is a difference. There is a question who comes in me is, do you love yourself? Do I love myself? And it's maybe a practice of learning to love yourself. Yeah. And when we learn to love ourselves, then compassion will be there. So in our life there is a reason why we don't love ourselves. So it's things which happen for ourselves or our ancestors, and then things come up in us. So for most of us is we need to feel love and to feel loved and to be able to love. So I would just take an example. It's not related too much to your question, but it was come in my heart now. For example, I lost my mother, so already many years ago, and I loved my mother very dearly, and I was looking for her love in people to love me, and then with the practice, I realized that I didn't really love myself. And one thing which helped me the most is a practice of walking meditation and being in the nature. And with the mindful steps, getting in contact with the love of the earth, what we call Mother Earth, and seeing how much our beauty, our presence, our stability, our creativity, our endurance, perseverance. And Mother Earth is there for us. And then with my steps I could enter in contact with Mother Earth and feeling the love of my mother through the love of nature. And with the trees, hugging the trees, breathing the air, bringing my attention to the flowers. And so it's one practice which helped me a lot to feel the love which was present all the time. The nature is there all the time for us, looking at the sky, the stars, and then feeling this love, and somehow feeling love, because sometimes I could feel, okay, nobody loves me, and I don't love myself. So, but the nature was loving me, and always, and then feeling love, then the love for myself just could unfold and come. And feeling pity is, I think for me, it's, I don't know, somehow it's related with feeling love for yourself. And when this feeling come up is just to recognize, oh, what's happening in my heart. I feel separate. There is a separation with others. Is to feel the connection. I don't know since how long you practice, but for us we speak about interbeing. I don't know if you heard about this word. So we our parents are within us, our friends, everything is within us. So it's going back to your breath, just recognize, okay, I feel pity, what's happening, and just coming back to the breathing. For the moment, that's all I can share. Maybe some other things will come up, but maybe my sister can help giving more insight.
Maybe it's because I don't really see my sister engaging in self-pity. I sometimes do. But I think it's also a matter of gaining perspective and identifying what exactly it is we're feeling sorry for ourselves for. For instance, when I was young, I felt sorry that, because we grew up poor and I never had a doll. I just mentioned this yesterday to a friend. Like, we never had dolls growing up. So going to visit other kids my age and they have a room full of stuffed animals or dolls, then I kind of felt a bit of self-pity. Self-pity also goes along with a bit of jealousy, so you have to recognize that too. And so it comes up. But now when I look back, I think, it was a great thing I never had dolls, because that enabled us, my brothers and sisters and I, to play outdoors all the time. That's all we had. We had nature. We had no toys. We had really absolutely no toys. The toys we had were like from the popsicle sticks that, we saved and we made, or, we go out and pick twigs and build homes from leaves, things like that in nature. So I'm thinking if I had a doll, maybe I wouldn't ever had a chance to enjoy nature like that with my brothers and sisters. or memories of playing hide and seek until the sun sets, and things like that. So I feel it's a matter of perspective too, and then seeing things, and recognizing what you actually have, recognizing all of the conditions of happiness that we have right now. Because I think also one of the issues I see that I recognize around in our society right now, and especially in a society of abundance, the issue of the young people, for instance, many of them feel entitled to something, I don't know, to the parents' wealth, their love, their whatever, and it's pretty, it's almost a sickness, you see. And this, if you don't have your parents' love, if you don't have whatever material possessions that you feel you're entitled to, you might engage in this kind of feeling of self-pity. But if you flip through a book, maybe, I flipped through this book with pictures of the earth, and many, aerial views of the earth. And one of the pictures I found in there was a baby girl put on, naked on a concrete, and already at a few months she had to beg for her living. Her parents put her there and with a bowl, so that people could give her money. So it's also a matter of perspective. Like, I don't have this, I don't have this car, I don't have these clothes. Do I feel sorry for myself? There are so many people in the world who have even less. I have, this pain in my body. Do I feel sorry for myself? No, there are a lot of people who have much worse pain. I engaged in some self-pity because of health issues that arose for me recently, and then I was like, gosh, a lot of people have way worse medical conditions than I do, and I'm still able to breathe, I'm still able to function, I'm still able to walk. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but then when I would do, or if I would think, oh, wow, this person experiences so much suffering, then maybe I'll just be pitying them, So that's why I'm, curious about this idea of transforming the pity into compassion, because I think that will make, feeling, the suffering of other, or being compassionate for the suffering of others too.
I think compassion has to start somewhere, and if it starts from a feeling of pity, it's also okay, because it helps you to identify, to recognize what that person is suffering from. The problem is if you don't see at all if the other person is suffering. So if you already see that the other person is suffering, that's already at the beginning of your compassion. And looking more deeply, you can recognize. And also a matter of perspective too. Where does that suffering come from? Sometimes you have a part in that suffering too, by our way of consuming. For instance, we feel so sorry for people in the third world, etc., etc. Most, well, I used to. No, I don't. It's not a matter of feeling sorry, but I think there are things I can do. But for instance, if I look into the way I consume, just for instance, fast fashion, we used to talk about food and how we if we change, from meat eating to vegetarian or vegan, it would help so many problems of of climate change, etc. We also now need to look into fashion, for instance. So our way of consuming, whether it's food, fashion, whatever, also contributes to the problems that are out there as well. So in our practice, we have also mindful consumption, the 5th mindfulness training. And it's a daily practice to see, it's like an interbeing, how we contribute to the suffering just by our way of consuming. Even if you see that, and that's like kind of material. But in terms of spiritual, you know, sometimes you recognize another person's suffering and it could, you know, it's emotional, but maybe our way of speaking it or our way of thinking is contributing to that as well. So not just having pity or compassion, but looking more broadly to see how we have contributed or is a part of that. And when we can identify exactly what it is that we've done that has contributed to that, that's when we take action to transform that. Yeah. Thank you.
I just add one thing, if you don't, just was something short, is to know that my suffering is the suffering of the other person, my happiness is the happiness of the other person. So if you cultivate your stability and your freedom and your joy and your peace, that's what you will offer to others, and your heart of compassion will open slowly, slowly. So it's like to build on, and you all know that your own practice and your own way of living, like my sister was sharing, this is going to transform the pity into compassion, and know that when you live, you offer. When you smile, it's a gift that you offer to others. When you see someone in pain and you just offer a gentle touch, it's a gift that you offer, and your heart of compassion with simple gesture and simple words and your beautiful presence will be an offering of compassion. Exactly. Thank you.
So so we would like to thank everyone for being here today and for asking your questions from the heart. I just want to make a small announcement too, is that today is the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's passing. The 4th in America, the 5th in Europe, I think. And we know that Tay very much valued Dr. Martin Luther King for his courage, for his compassion, and also for his nonviolent action. And Tay also said at one point that in one Q&A to a 13-year-old boy asked our teacher, if there's no such thing as birth and death, if there's no birth and death, then why is it wrong to kill? And it's a wonderful question, and it's online if you want to hear the answer. I just want to share the bit about Dr. Martin Luther King. And in the answer, Tay referred to different assassinations, like killings, like Gandhi or Kennedy or Dr. King. And he said, it's impossible to kill Dr. King, Martin Luther King. He cannot die. You cannot kill Martin Luther King. He only becomes stronger. And when we look around us today, we recognize him, his spirit, his direction, his love of community building, and he's only become stronger. So you cannot really kill him. Anyhow, I encourage you to look up that question. It's a wonderful question from a 13-year-old boy. But today we would like to remember Dr. Martin Luther King. So during the walking meditation today, we invite you to enjoy your steps, and enjoy the beloved community around you. It's very precious to have people who are walking on the same path as us, who have kind of the same desire to transform the suffering inside ourselves and share this process of transformation with others around us. Dr. King did that, Tate did that. We're all continuing to do that. So as you're walking, please enjoy your steps, enjoy the community around you, enjoy the beloved Mother Earth, enjoy the beloved community. The Sangha, the community, Dr. Martin Luther King called it the beloved community, and for very good reasons as well. So we invite you to get in touch with the beloved community during walking meditation today. Thank you very much for joining us, and I think there will be, so please enjoy 3 sounds of the bell to end the session today.